Last time I filmed this style of video, I had my laptop in front of me because the mobile Goodreads app is so terrible. This time I was not organized, so we may need to suffer. Hi everyone, Rosie here. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. I think it was in August, I did a video where I looked at 1-star reviews of books that I had given 5 stars to and sort of reacted to why people didn't like these books. I think it was a lot of fun. I think it turned out really well. I really liked that video. So I want to try something kind of similar, but kind of different. I don't know, keeping it fresh. What I'm going to do today is I've picked, I think, 5 books that I gave 3 stars. I'm not sure if I'll use all 5. I'm going to sort of go based on how long I'm talking about each one. Who knows, maybe there'll be a part 2. But basically books that I thought were fine. They were okay, or I didn't like them, but I didn't think they were terrible. And I'm gonna go and I'm gonna look at a 1-star review and a 5-star review. Let's just jump in and we'll figure it out as we go. The first book we're gonna look up is The Big Four by Agatha Christie. This is a very recent read for me. I only read it in September, which means, when is this video going up? Yeah, this is going up before my September wrap-up. Spoiler alert, I read The Big Four by Agatha Christie. It's an Hercule Poirot novel, and I thought it was okay. It wasn't, like, terrible, but it also, like, wasn't very good. Should we start positive or should we start negative? I'm not sure. Let's start with 1 star. Let's start negative and then go positive. That sounds fun. I'm just gonna go with the first one I come across. I'm not gonna be picky. I don't want this to take all day, and also I kinda wanna do random. That'll be fun, right? So this is someone who read the book in May 2019. Oh my god, this is so long. Okay, I'm gonna read all of it. Why not? Before the review, I just want to ask a couple of questions. What was the Queen of Mystery smoking? Is this stuff still available in the 21st century? On to the review. The only reason I can justify the existence of this abomination is that it is a parody, I hope it is, of Sherlock Holmes versus Professor Moriarty, Duel of Wits. Basically, there's an international crime cartel led by 4 people, the last of whom is a ruthless killer whose identity is unknown. It is up to Poirot and Hastings to track him down. It is a collection of seemingly unrelated cases, with guy number 4 always being the culprit. I also need to mention that the most part of the last case is taken almost word by word from the first half of Sherlock Holmes' Final Problem, with substitution by names. While the original is a very tragic story, this one reads as buffoonery. Sherlock Holmes was as an action hero works. Hercule Poirot does not. To add insult to the injury, when Poirot becomes an unbeatable guy, physically, he experienced a drop in IQ. Something to be expected, I guess. A couple of times he overlooked very obvious things. At times the stories themselves become stupid. This book is a disgrace to Hercule Poirot. I'm a big fan of him, and the next worst Poirot story gets a solid 4 stars from me. But try as I might, I cannot bring myself to give this one more than 1 star. Before reading this book, I thought Agatha Christie could do no wrong. The Big Four quickly cured me of this silly idea. At least this is not the worst from one of the world's best mystery writers. This dubious distinction goes to Passenger to Frankfurt, which is an incomprehensible mess. Try to avoid The Big Four if you have not read it before, even if you are a die-hard fan. Wow, there's a lot to unpack here. Alright, where to begin? Yeah, I agree with a lot of that review. Obviously, I will give you my full review in a couple videos now, so you'll have to stick around for that. But this story does not work. It is not good. It does not fit Poirot. It does not fit Christie's style that I've read so far. It was not good. That being said, I think because I'm not a die-hard Poirot fan, I was more generous with it. I don't love a lot of his stories. I've had maybe 1 that I've read that was super good and I absolutely adored it. Then there's been several that were like solid but not my favorite. And a lot of the Poirot that I've read so far I find kind of meh. I don't know, it's not really my thing. But I think that means that I didn't have as far to fall with this one. I was kind of like, oh, just another Poirot that doesn't really work for me. Instead of going like, oh my god, this is my favorite and you've ruined it. Which is an interesting perspective that I hadn't thought about before. Another review. Let's find a 5-star. Yeah, this one's a good length. 5 stars! With 5-star emojis. Hercule Poirot is the GOAT! That was genius, despite it being only his 5th case. Dear folks, what a treat you have ahead of you. Nothing could have been written and narrated more beautifully than it was. Agatha's attention to details is as brilliant as Poirot's mind is. I want to emphasize on Poirot and Hastings' relationship, such a strong and amazing connection. I truly respect that. Red heart. Kinda makes one wish fictional characters were real. Hashtag Big Four. Maybe I'm being a bit biased by picking this 5-star review, but I promise it really was just the first one I came across. I wasn't like going looking for anything in particular. Idea to file away for another time. Maybe I need to do this, but where I look at like multiple 1-star and multiple 5-star for one book. That could be a cool thing to do sometime, but that's not what I'm doing here, so we're just going with what we have. I'm trying to think about how to talk about this review without sounding really snobby and mean, because I don't want to be. I'm really glad that this person has loved this book, but I think it's interesting that for the person who didn't like the book, they had a whole lot to say about why they didn't like it, versus the person who likes it is just like, it was fantastic, I loved it, which I totally relate to, because that's how I feel about books. When I don't like something, I have so many thoughts about it. But when I love something, I'm just kind of like, I don't know, it was really good. Which makes me curious and like kind of want to put more work in my own reading and reviewing into thinking about what are more articulate ways I can express my excitement and enjoyment of a book. I was meant to be reacting reviews, but basically I'm just reflecting on like my own shit. Let's move on to the second book. The second one on my list is The Soul of an Octopus by Montgomery. I read this in July, so I'll link my wrap up here, and also, I read this for a reading vlog, so I will also link my partner picks my TBR reading vlogs. I talk about it in quite a bit of length there. So it's a memoir about a woman learning about octopuses, and it's also about octopuses. It was okay. Parts of it were solid, parts of it kind of didn't really work for me. Let's go negative first again. Oh, a review from 5 years ago. Let's go with this. The only surprising thing about sorry, I have to do the air quotes. The only surprising thing about this exploration into the wonder of consciousness is that the author so thoroughly convinces us of octopus's beauty, intelligence, and individual personalities, yet sees no conflict with keeping them captive, often in cruel conditions. Most of the octopuses intimately investigated in this book were wild caught and are now captive in public aquariums, namely the New England Aquarium in Boston. They were not rescued due to an injury, nor born in captivity and imprinted, making a return to the wild difficult. These were all caught and sold for the purpose of being publicly displayed. Montgomery takes an obscene amount of pleasure in her wonderful Wednesday visits to the New England Aquarium something, as if her entertainment was the octopus's purpose. The most horrible thing recounted in the book is an octopus that due to space constraints has to live for 8 months in a tiny pickle barrel with no stimuli beyond the humans bothering her. She is visibly distressed and tries to escape every time the lid is lifted. How is the author and everyone okay with this? It was terrible to read. Finally, the writing was sappy and self-absorbed. While I did learn a lot of interesting things about cephalopod anatomy, biology, and behavior, those bits of knowledge only strengthened my distaste for the questionable ethics of the author and the book. Shame on the National Book Award judges nominating this book for nonfiction award. Interesting. That is a good point. The author makes an argument in the book, although it's not really by any means the focus of the book, or is it really discussed properly? And that's a very valid criticism of this book. I was so focused on the surface level things, I guess, and like the way it was written that didn't agree with me, that I wasn't thinking as much about that side of it. But that's a pretty big bias to leave out of your book, to not even discuss the other side of this topic and to just accept it as a given. Yeah, maybe we should be questioning this stuff. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know which side of the argument will come down as closer to correct, but maybe we should be having this argument, and maybe we should be having this discussion and actually getting all this stuff out there. And now, why should we love it? It's such a beautiful book, such an incredible story. I already loved octopuses, but this book deepened and strengthened my love for them and all of cephalopods. It's an easy read, and by the time you're finished, you'll be asking yourself questions about consciousness, interspecies communication, and maybe even feeling a little more of a bond with the fishes who live in your aquarium. I know that I did. I feel like this person just got a totally different side of the book to the previous reviewer, and I actually totally see how you could get both. I think that's why I felt mediocre about it. I felt like I could see the potential for this to be incredible and for this to deliver to me what that reviewer clearly got. But for me, it just didn't quite reach that. And that's probably just a preference and taste and like, we're all different and nothing's gonna work for everyone type thing. What's good for me is not necessarily gonna be good for someone else, and vice versa. Although I still think that that 1-star review was totally valid and an interesting conversation about this book, I also totally see how this 5-star reviewer had the experience that they did. How long have I been filming for? 17 minutes already? Oh boy, okay, I'm gonna do one more book. This seems to always happen when I do this style of video, doesn't it? But that's okay. Oh, I have to go with one that I gave 3 stars, but actually I didn't really like, and that is Lillian Boxfish Takes a Walk by Kathleen Rooney. I read this one in January. It was one of my first reads of the year, actually, and I'll link that wrap up here so you can check it out. This book, I didn't DNF it, so I gave it 3 stars, I think. Although, upon reflection and thinking about what I remember about this book, it's probably a 2-star read. Anyways, it didn't deliver what it was saying it was going to. It felt like a knockoff version of what I was hoping for in this book. Like it was the sort of thing where it had the structure, it had the potential, but it just didn't carry through and actually deliver or be convincing in what it was doing. It's just about this woman walking around New York City in the 80s and reflecting on her life, basically. She's very old, so like she's reflecting on the last 84 years of her life or something. Doing very, Marcel Proust, what is it? What's the name of that book? Something with the temps perdu? In Search of Lost Time? You know the famous Proust book with the Madeleine. I haven't actually read it, so that's probably why I don't know anything about it. But it's basically like that, but New York City. Anyways, I gave it 3 stars. Let's see what the lovers and haters say. I'm just gonna search through a couple to see if I can find a long one. Oh yes, here's a good nice long one. I feel like they're more fun. There's more to think about and more to reflect on with them. It takes a lot for me to pull the bookmark. I rarely do it, and only once before have I done it twice. I did it twice on Miss Boxfish. I have no interest in taking a walk with a boring, insufferable snob whose vocabulary is praised in many reviews as smart and clever, but which I found tedious. You will encounter nugatory, flaneur, enjambement, and many other obscure words in English, French, Latin, and for all I know, taken from the Rosetta Stone. But some things are simplistic to this snob. For example, Oreos are vile black sandwiches. Yawn. Her opinions are often as tedious as the language in which she expresses them. The snobs of Capote, for example, make for great reading. This is not that. She's completely without joy or circumspection. She's a first-class crab. And Rooney has made a crucial error. I jumped to the end to see if it got any better. It didn't. And there I found the epilogue, in which Rooney lets the reader know the book is based on an actual person and all of the ad jingles and most of all of the poems in the book were actually written by this person, whose name was Fishback. Why she should save that important detail for the end, rather than let the reader know they are enjoying or suffering through the actual ad copy of a pioneering female copywriter, is head-scratching. I hoped this book would be a great stroll through the life of a woman born in 1899 and through the New York I remember of 1984, before it was deliberately and aggressively over-sanitized and Disney-fied. Instead, I found the novel extremely dull. I didn't miss the point. I got it, and I don't want it. If we're being honest, that review makes me feel like I'm way too generous with my stars, because this person seems to have felt a similar level of this book as I did. And they gave it 1 star, and I gave it 3. So maybe I need to reassess a bit. But basically, yeah, that's my way of saying I agree with all of this. This book just did not work. The character didn't work. None of it worked. I didn't like it. So I'll be interested to see if a 5-star review manages to win me over at all. Okay, we're just going for it. I'm going for the first medium length one. I wanted to find something more exciting, but that's not how I'm playing this game. This book, told in Lillian's voice, is pitch perfect. It captures the times, the place, and the woman perfectly. It just felt like I was right in Lillian's head. Lily and I were born 50 plus years apart, but so many of the issues were the same for both of us, like being one of the few women in our profession and fighting for equal pay. It also struck me that I'm reading this on Equal Pay Day in 2017, so some things still haven't changed. But the message here is to enjoy life no matter what it throws at you. As Lillian says, she had it backwards. It wasn't that happiness led to humor, but that more humor could lead, perhaps, to happiness. The deny for the absurd could keep one active in one's despair, the opposite of depressed, static and passive. And it is not as if Lillian had an easy life. She has to quit her beloved job when she gets pregnant, suffers a breakdown, and goes through a divorce, but she's a survivor. I love that at age 85, Lillian is able to walk more miles than most women half her age. She's a strong character in so many ways. It lent a whole new level of appreciation when I learned that Lillian was based on a real person, Margaret Fishback. Highly recommend this book. Huh. Well, that's interesting. Let's have some tea while I think about it. No more tea. Guess I have to actually figure out what to say now. This one, I think I feel more strongly negative on this because I find it harder to see how someone else has had this different experience. My distaste for this book was so strong that I read all of these things that this person related to and was just like, did we read the same book? That's the vibe I have with this review. Because the way this person has related to this character and this style of writing, I'm just going, how has this product produced these two different feelings? They seem too far apart. And again, I know that's silly and it's just personal taste. People have different we may all read the same text on the page, but because we are all bringing everything from ourselves to it as well, we're not having the same experience, and that's normal. Not sure how much good reacting I've actually done today, but let's call it a wrap on this video. My question for you today is, are you guys ever swayed by reviews? Because some of these, reading the reviews, made me feel like not that my opinion was necessarily changing, but that it was shifting. My view of where that fell on the scale was shifting. So yes, how do you react when you read reviews that differ from your opinion of a book? What does it tend to make you think about or feel? And also, if you like this video, please give it a like down below. If you would like to see more of my videos, please hit subscribe, and thank you for watching.